Okay, we're back with more with Dan Lobeck. We're talking about the new bill that was just passed by the legislature. How does this? What some of the developers argue is that this is going to allow them to go in and revitalize or redevelop some of the urban areas, the denser areas, where they can go in and do some projects, I guess, and not have to spend a lot of money on updating the road system. Is that basically their argument?
Isn't that inconvenient? I mean, to have adequate roads. Yeah, I'm sure there are developers that are delighted not to have to worry about that if the county or the city gives them the green light for gridlock. You know, and growth management means you manage things. I mean, you balance things. You allow development, you allow revitalization, redevelopment in a good way, in a positive way. But if we're chasing away tourists because they don't want to come back because the congestion is too horrible, if businesses are delayed in being able to deliver goods and services, if you or I coming home from work have to spend another half hour stuck in traffic before we can see our families, this is not a good thing to me. You know, I mean, maybe I'm naive, but it seems to me you ought to be able to have good development, positive development, and still not destroy our quality of life.
So in the past, if a developer wanted to go in and put a big project into an urban area, he may have to pay for the new roads, new traffic signals, things like that. Is that the way it worked before?
Or be told no. I mean,
or be told you can't do it.
Yeah, sometimes you can make adequate improvements, and they'd have to pay for them, which is the other bad thing with this. If you're not going to make the improvements, you can't really ask them to pay for it. So it's going to, you know, cut that out as well. Yeah, this is basically just going to allow intolerable traffic congestion if our city commissioners and our county commissioners go along with it. And that's the point I really want to emphasize. Right. It's going to be up to our local officials. So they need to hear from the public that we care about traffic congestion, and when the boom comes back again, you know, we want it to be regulated and controlled in a way that doesn't give the green light to gridlock.
So the protection to restrain growth at the state level, this bill basically takes that away, but now it's going to be up to the local.
Exactly.
I got it. Were you surprised by this bill? I mean, is this something that kind of caught you by surprise?
Not at all. Mike Bennett has been striving for years to dismantle growth management, and the economy gave him his opening. And I figured he would take it, and he did take it. And you know, together with his increased clout, and he's got a PAC. It's I think it's called Citizens for Growth in the Economy or something like that. I mean, it makes no bones what he's for, and he's raised thousands, tens of thousands of dollars from developers to try to become Senate president without the $500 per legislator campaign limit that otherwise would apply. And so he's using this clout to undo growth management.
He uses that political action committee to support other legislators running for election?
That's one of the things he does.
And give him influence with other legislators.
Right, so he can become Senate president. That's his goal.
I see. Now, do you expect the governor to sign this, Charlie Crist to sign it?
Supposedly there was a deal made. Mike Bennett says a deal was made with the governor. He's open about it. Where he took out of his bill a proposal to dismantle the state's growth management agency.
The Department of Community Affairs.
The Department of Community Affairs, you know, which is a crazy idea to begin with. But, you know, he had enough clout. The thought was that he could do it. And the governor's agency head, Tom Pelham, worked out a deal where Pelham's agency would be allowed to continue to exist in return for Pelham's support for this very bad bill. I mean, I was an aide in the state Senate a number of years ago, and I see how these deals are made, or did at the time, and that's what happened here. And so my fear is that the governor will sign it or allow it to become law. He should veto it. If he wants to be elected to the U.S. Senate, I would suggest he not carry around his neck the tag Governor Gridlock. I mean, something the Democrats could so well exploit to his detriment. I like Charlie Crist in a lot of ways. I hate to see that happen to him.
Last question I wanted to ask you. Obviously, baseball, it looks like it's dead here in Sarasota, spring training. What do you think about the general concept of local governments, county commissioners, city commissioners, spending money to try to attract spring training baseball?
Oh, our tax dollars are scarce, and governments are being forced to prioritize. And when you have a choice between cutting back police services and public safety and subsidizing a multi-million-dollar baseball enterprise, it seems to me the choice is pretty clear. And on a comparable note, county government is cutting back library hours and also sacrificing some important public services. they were able to find, I believe it was $121,000 a year, to pay for a new director of so-called smart growth, whose sole mission is to persuade the public and the county commission to add so much density and intensity this side of the interstate as to overcrowd our roads. It gets back to that issue of traffic congestion. Jim Lay got this guy hired for bad public policy with money the county doesn't have to spare. So whether it's subsidizing professional sports or subsidizing those who would lobby for bad public policy, it seems to me the county doesn't have a lot of extra money right now, neither does the cities.
All right. Well, we appreciate your perspective. Thanks for coming on, Dan.
I appreciate the opportunity.
All right.
Thanks so much, Ron. It was a pleasure.
Sure. Okay, now, folks, it's time for our Weasel of the Week.
Pop goes the pop, goes the whining of the weasel. I see the empty pocket needs a refill.
I can't stand our anonymous letter writers, posters, callers. If you want to publish something, you want to write something, you want to put something up on a message board, for God's sakes, put your name on it. People who post things anonymously really are gutless cowards. And unfortunately this week, there's a gentleman named Tom Carpenter who is a Taekwondo instructor, and there's another gentleman named Tom Carpenter who happens to be a sex offender, but they're not the same person. And what this anonymous person did is started an email campaign and sent out a bunch of emails to people and businesses surrounding Tom Carpenter's business, telling them, this guy's a sex offender, keep your kids away from him. He happens to instruct kids in Taekwondo. And as it turned out, he had the wrong guy. And once Mr. Carpenter, the innocent Mr. Carpenter, figured it out, he contacted this person back and said, look, you need to stop sending out these emails to all these people that I'm a sex offender because you got the wrong guy. And the person apologized and claimed that he would go ahead and send out a new batch of emails to people telling them that Tom Carpenter was in fact not a sex offender and he was wrong. The problem is that Mr. Carpenter then asked for the guy's name. Said he wanted his name and phone number because he wanted to call him up and talk to him and say, hey, look, why did you do this to me without first checking to make sure you had the right guy? And the guy said that he refused to give him his phone number because he didn't want Tom Carpenter harassing him. This, the guy who tried to destroy Tom Carpenter's life through a series of malicious, false, anonymous emails, said that he didn't want to give Tom Carpenter his name and number because he didn't want to be harassed by Tom Carpenter. This is a perfect example of a weasel. Now, the sheriff's office is trying to track down this person, get his name, and hopefully prosecute him. Good luck to you, my friend, because you're about to go to jail. We'll see you next week, Clout 941.